The Galactic Council had seen many species rise and fall across the stars. They had witnessed the silent death of the Cathari, whose homeworld simply went dark one day, leaving only empty cities behind. They had observed the Zephyrians fade into extinction with barely a whisper, their final transmissions containing only acceptance and resignation. Death, in the galaxy, was typically a quiet affair. So when the human homeworld of Earth suffered what appeared to be a catastrophic environmental collapse, the Council expected the same dignified silence they had grown accustomed to. The initial reports were grim. Massive volcanic eruptions had triggered a chain reaction of earthquakes and tsunamis. The planet's atmosphere was choking on ash and debris. Satellite imagery showed cities going dark one by one as power grids failed and communication networks collapsed. Ambassador Veltar of the Altarian Collective adjusted his ceremonial robes as he prepared the standard condolence message. The humans had been members of the Galactic Council for only 57 standard years, making them one of the newer species to join the galactic community. They were known for their stubborn determination and unusual emotional responses to situations. But even they would surely understand that some disasters were beyond any species' ability to overcome. The council chambers buzzed with quiet conversation as representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for the memorial session. It was a solemn tradition, one that honored the fallen while acknowledging the harsh realities of existence in an unforgiving universe. Ambassador Veltar had delivered similar speeches for 7 other species during his tenure, each time following the time-honored protocols of respectful remembrance. "The humans showed promise," remarked Counselor Thexney, her insectoid features clicking softly as she spoke. "Their technological advancement was rapid, and their cultural contributions were energetic. It is unfortunate that their homeworld proved so unstable. Their emotional nature may have made adaptation difficult," added Representative Mordak, his scaled hide shimmering under the chamber's artificial lighting. "Perhaps they lacked the logical detachment necessary to abandon a dying world and relocate their population centers." The gathered representatives nodded in understanding. It was a common pattern they had observed throughout galactic history. Species that formed strong emotional attachments to their homeworlds often struggled to make the rational decision to evacuate when faced with planetary-scale disasters. The successful species were those that could view worlds as temporary resources rather than irreplaceable homes. As the memorial session was about to begin, a junior aide rushed into the chamber, her breathing rapid and her expression confused. She whispered urgently into Ambassador Veltar's ear, causing his normally composed features to shift into an expression of bewilderment. "Counselors," Veltar announced, his voice carrying an unusual note of uncertainty. "We have received an unexpected transmission from the Sol system. It appears that our intelligence regarding Earth's situation may have been incomplete." The main viewing screen activated, displaying a figure that many recognized as Admiral Sarah Chen, the human military liaison to the Council. Her uniform was dirty and torn, and there were dark smudges on her face that suggested she had been in the midst of some kind of physical labor. Behind her, the background showed not the expected scene of devastation, but rather what appeared to be a massive construction site buzzing with activity. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Admiral Chen said, her voice steady despite her disheveled appearance. "I understand you may have heard some concerning reports about Earth's condition. I'm here to provide you with an update on our current situation." The Council members exchanged glances of confusion. In their experience, species facing planetary extinction typically sent out desperate pleas for assistance or formal farewell messages. Admiral Chen's tone was neither panicked nor resigned. If anything, she sounded annoyed. "As you may know, Earth has indeed experienced significant geological instability over the past several months. Volcanic activity has increased by approximately 3,000%, and seismic events have damaged much of our existing infrastructure. However, I want to assure the Council that humanity is handling the situation. Ambassador Veltar's head tilted in confusion, his species equivalent of raising an eyebrow. Admiral Chen, our monitoring stations indicate that Earth's surface has become largely uninhabitable. Surely your population centers require immediate evacuation assistance? That's very kind of you to offer, Admiral Chen replied, and there was definitely an edge to her voice now. But we've got things under control. You see, when Earth started trying to kill us, we decided we weren't going to just roll over and die quietly like everyone apparently expected. The chamber fell silent. In the galactic community's long history, no species had ever described their relationship with their homeworld in such adversarial terms. Planets were not entities that could try to do anything. They were simply collections of matter following natural laws. I'm not sure I understand, Counselor Thexney interjected, her mandibles clicking nervously. What exactly do you mean when you say Earth is trying to kill you? Admiral Chen's expression hardened. I mean that our planet decided to throw the biggest tantrum in geological history, and instead of accepting it gracefully, humanity looked at the situation and said, not today. When the volcanoes started erupting, we didn't evacuate. We built better heat shields. When the earthquakes started toppling our buildings, we didn't abandon our cities. We designed structures that could ride out the shaking like ships on an ocean. The viewing angle of the transmission shifted slightly, revealing more of the scene behind Admiral Chen. What the council members saw defied their understanding of how civilized species responded to natural disasters. Instead of refugee camps or evacuation ships, they observed massive construction mechs working alongside human crews to erect towering structures that seemed designed to withstand tremendous forces. In the distance, they could see the glow of what appeared to be active volcanic sites, but instead of the expected scenes of destruction, there were humans working in protective suits, apparently harvesting something from the molten rock. When the ash clouds blocked out the sun, Admiral Chen continued, we didn't mourn the loss of solar power. We tapped directly into the geothermal energy that was causing all the problems in the first place. When the tsunamis started reshaping our coastlines, we didn't flee inland. We built floating cities that could rise and fall with the water levels. Representative Mordak's scales had begun to shift to a pale color that indicated deep confusion among his species. But Admiral, the energy requirements for such projects would be enormous. How could any species possibly marshal the resources necessary to essentially rebuild an entire world's infrastructure while under such duress? That's the thing, Admiral Chen said, and for the first time, she smiled. It was not the peaceful smile of acceptance that the Council was familiar with seeing from doomed species. It was the fierce grin of a predator that had been challenged and found the experience invigorating. When you tell humanity that something can't be done, that just makes us want to do it more. When Earth started falling apart, every human on the planet looked at the situation and thought, challenge accepted. The transmission showed more scenes of impossible human activity. Cities that had been built to bend rather than break, massive atmospheric processors clearing ash from the air, and most shocking of all, teams of humans who appeared to be working directly with the volcanic activity, channeling and redirecting lava flows as if they were managing a particularly unruly river system. We've turned our entire homeworld into the largest engineering project in human history, Admiral Chen explained. Every natural disaster has become a design challenge. Every geological event has become a new opportunity to prove that humanity doesn't give up on its home without a fight. The council chamber remained silent as the implications of what they were seeing slowly sank in. This was not the orderly evacuation they had expected. This was not the dignified acceptance of natural limitations that characterized civilized species. This was something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire species, that had looked at planetary-scale destruction and decided to punch back. Ambassador Veltar finally found his voice. "Admiral Chen, while we admire your species' determination, surely you must realize that such efforts, however valiant, can only delay the inevitable. No species can truly fight against the natural forces of planetary geology." Admiral Chen's smile widened. "Ambassador, with all due respect, I don't think you understand humans very well yet. We're the species that looked at the deepest oceans and decided to go swimming. We're the ones who saw the highest mountains and decided to climb them just because they were there. We figured out how to fly by watching birds and then built machines that could go faster than sound. We looked up at other worlds and said, we're going to visit those, and then actually did it." The transmission quality wavered for a moment, and when it stabilized, the view had changed to show what appeared to be a human city that was somehow functioning normally despite being built directly on the slope of an active volcano. Streets and buildings had been designed to channel lava flows safely away from populated areas, and the entire community seemed to be thriving in conditions that should have been completely uninhabitable. "Earth isn't trying to kill us," Admiral Chen continued, her voice carrying a note of pride. "Earth is teaching us. Every earthquake shows us how to build stronger foundations. Every volcanic eruption teaches us new ways to harness energy. Every tsunami demonstrates better methods of working with water rather than against it. We're not just surviving what's happening to our world. We're learning from it and becoming stronger because of it." The council members sat in stunned silence as the full scope of humanity's response to planetary catastrophe became clear. Rather than accepting their fate with the quiet dignity expected of civilized species, humans had declared war on impossibility itself and appeared to be winning. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session that had nothing to do with offering condolences to humanity. Instead, they found themselves grappling with reports that challenged everything they thought they knew about planetary management and species survival. The data streaming in from the Sol system was unprecedented. Not only had humanity survived what should have been an extinction-level event, but they had somehow managed to increase their planetary productivity by 47%. Their energy output had tripled. Most disturbing of all, they had begun expanding their civilization into areas of Earth that had previously been considered completely uninhabitable. Director Quintal of the Galactic Survey Corps stood before the assembled council, her normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. In her 3 centuries of cataloging worlds and their inhabitants, she had never encountered anything like the situation on Earth. "Counselors, I must report that our understanding of human capabilities was fundamentally flawed," she began, her voice carrying the weight of someone delivering news that no one wanted to hear. "What we initially assessed as a planetary death event has instead become what can only be described as an accelerated evolution of their entire civilization." The main display showed current satellite imagery of Earth, and the transformation was stunning. Where once there had been cities built to coexist peacefully with their environment, there were now vast complexes that seemed to merge seamlessly with the planet's geological activity. Massive towers rose from volcanic sites, their surfaces gleaming with what appeared to be hardened lava that had been shaped and molded into architectural elements. Coastal cities floated on the turbulent seas, their structures expanding and contracting with the rhythm of the waves. "They're not just adapting to the disasters," Director Quintal continued, "they're incorporating them into their infrastructure. These aren't temporary emergency measures, they're permanent improvements to their civilization." Ambassador Veltar studied the images with growing unease. "How is this possible? Our models clearly indicated that the level of geological activity on Earth should have made organized civilization impossible to maintain." "That's exactly the problem with our models," came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Admiral Sarah Chen strode into the council chambers without waiting for formal invitation, her presence causing a ripple of surprise among the assembled representatives. She looked remarkably different from her last appearance. Gone were the dirt and grime of emergency response. Instead, she wore what appeared to be a new type of uniform that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "Admiral Chen," Counselor Thexney said carefully, "we were not expecting a human representative to attend this session." "I'm sure you weren't," Admiral Chen replied, taking a position at the center of the chamber without asking permission. "But I thought it might be helpful if someone explained what you're actually seeing in those images, since your analysis seems to be missing a few key points." The tension in the chamber was palpable. In the centuries-old traditions of the Galactic Council, member species typically approached the governing body with requests for assistance or guidance. They did not march uninvited into emergency sessions and offer to correct the Council's understanding of galactic affairs. "Admiral," Representative Mordak said with forced diplomacy, "while we appreciate your willingness to provide information, the Council's analysis is based on established scientific principles and comprehensive data collection. Your analysis is based on the assumption that intelligent species respond to planetary changes the same way you would," Admiral Chen countered. "You look at a volcanic eruption and see destruction. We look at it and see an untapped energy source. You see an earthquake and think about structural failure. We see it and start designing buildings that can dance with the movement of the Earth itself." She gestured, and the main display shifted to show detailed views of human settlements that defied conventional understanding. Cities that seemed to breathe with the planet's seismic activity. Structures that channeled and redirected natural forces rather than simply withstanding them. Most remarkable of all, human communities that had been built not despite the geological chaos, but because of it. "You keep talking about Earth trying to kill us," Admiral Chen continued, "but you're missing the point entirely. Earth isn't our enemy. Earth is our teacher. Every disaster is a lesson in physics. Every catastrophe is a masterclass in engineering. We're not fighting against our planet. We're learning to dance with it." The council members exchanged glances that reflected their growing discomfort. In their experience, successful civilizations were those that achieved harmony through careful management and gradual adaptation. The human approach seemed almost recklessly aggressive by comparison. "But surely," Counselor Thexney interjected, "such rapid adaptation must come at tremendous cost. The social upheaval alone must be devastating to your population." Admiral Chen laughed, a sound that carried genuine amusement, rather than the bitter irony the Council might have expected. "Social upheaval? Counselor, this has been the most unifying event in human history. When faced with planetary-scale challenges, every artificial barrier between our people suddenly seemed ridiculous. National borders became meaningless when we realized we were all working on the same project. Political differences seemed petty when the alternative was extinction." The display showed scenes of human cooperation that illustrated her point. Massive construction projects involving people from every corner of Earth working together with a level of coordination that rivaled the most advanced hive mind species. Scientists and engineers sharing information in real time across global networks. Resources being deployed not according to economic considerations, but based purely on where they would do the most good for the species as a whole. "When Earth started reshaping itself," Admiral Chen explained, "humanity did something we'd never done before. We stopped thinking like separate nations and started thinking like one species with one home that we all needed to save. The result has been the largest cooperative effort in our entire history." Director Quintal studied the data flowing across her personal display, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "Admiral, our projections indicate that the level of geological activity on Earth should continue increasing for at least another standard year. How can your people possibly maintain this level of adaptation indefinitely?" "That's where you're still not getting it," Admiral Chen said, and her smile carried a hint of the same fierce pride that had appeared in her first transmission. "We're not just maintaining our adaptation, we're accelerating it. Every challenge makes us better at handling the next one. Every problem we solve teaches us new techniques we can apply to bigger problems." She gestured again, and the display shifted to show what appeared to be a massive construction project spanning an entire continent. Humans working alongside machines that seemed to be carved from volcanic rock itself, building structures that rose directly from the Earth's molten core and extended high into the atmosphere. "This isn't just survival," Admiral Chen continued. "This is evolution in real time. We're not the same species we were when this all started. We've become something new, something that doesn't just live on a planet, but lives with it." The council chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. They were witnessing something that had never occurred in galactic history, a species that had responded to extinction-level threats, not by fleeing or adapting defensively, but by fundamentally transforming their relationship with their environment. "Admiral," Ambassador Veltar said slowly, "are you suggesting that humanity has somehow achieved a symbiotic relationship with planetary geological processes?" "I'm not suggesting it," Admiral Chen replied. "I'm telling you that's exactly what we've done. Earth provides the energy and materials. We provide the intelligence and creativity to shape that energy and those materials into something greater than either of us could achieve alone." Representative Mordak's scales had shifted to colors that indicated deep philosophical confusion among his species. "But such a relationship would require a level of technological integration that should take millennia to develop." "Under normal circumstances, maybe," Admiral Chen agreed. "But these weren't normal circumstances. When your home is trying to kill you, you tend to innovate pretty quickly. When the choice is evolve or die, evolution stops being a gradual process and becomes an emergency response." The display showed more scenes of impossible human achievement, cities that grew like living things, expanding and adapting to accommodate the planet's changing geology, transportation systems that used the Earth's own movement to power themselves. Most remarkably, human communities that seemed to be thriving in conditions that would have challenged the survival capabilities of any known species. "The point is," Admiral Chen concluded, "you expected Earth's mourning to be silent because that's what you're used to seeing. When worlds die, their inhabitants typically die quietly with them. But humanity doesn't do quiet very well. When our world started dying, we didn't mourn. We got loud. We got creative. We got stubborn. And we turned what should have been our funeral into our graduation ceremony." The council members sat in stunned silence as they tried to process what they were witnessing. Humanity had not simply survived planetary catastrophe. They had used it as a catalyst for unprecedented advancement, transforming what should have been an extinction event into an evolution event. And that was only the beginning of what Earth's children had planned. 1 year after Earth's geological awakening, the Galactic Council found themselves facing a situation that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of civilization itself. What had begun as a routine planetary disaster response had evolved into something that threatened to reshape the entire galactic community. The emergency session was called after monitoring stations detected something that should have been impossible. Energy signatures from the Sol system indicated that Earth was not only stable, but had somehow become more energetically active than gas giants. The planet that should have been a graveyard had instead become what could only be described as a stellar engine. Chief Science Officer Kexvin of the Galactic Observatory stood before the Council, her normally precise demeanor replaced by visible bewilderment. In her 4 centuries of stellar observation, she had catalogued the births and deaths of thousands of worlds. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for what she was now required to report. "Counselors, I must inform you that Earth has ceased to function according to any known planetary parameters," she began, her voice carrying the strain of someone whose fundamental understanding of physics had been challenged. "The energy output from the Sol system has increased by factors that our instruments initially registered as equipment malfunction. The main viewing screen displayed data that seemed to defy rational explanation. Energy readings that rivaled small stars, gravitational fluctuations that suggested massive engineering projects operating on a scale that dwarfed anything previously achieved by any galactic civilization. Most disturbing of all, signs that humanity had begun extending their planetary modifications beyond Earth itself. They have apparently begun terraforming their entire solar system, Chief Science Officer Kexavan continued, her voice barely concealing her disbelief. What we initially dismissed as emergency survival measures has evolved into the largest engineering project in recorded galactic history. Ambassador Veltar studied the data with growing alarm. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply survived their planetary crisis. They had used it as a springboard to achieve technological capabilities that placed them among the most advanced species in the galaxy, despite their recent arrival on the galactic stage. "How is this possible?" Counselor Thexney demanded, her mandibles clicking rapidly in a display of agitation. "Our calculations clearly indicated that the energy requirements for such projects would exceed the total output capacity of their star system." "That's exactly the problem with our calculations," came a familiar voice as Admiral Sarah Chen materialized in the center of the chamber. The council members recoiled in surprise. What stood before them was recognizably human, but transformed in ways that challenged their understanding of biological possibility. Admiral Chen's appearance had changed dramatically. Her uniform seemed to be composed of materials that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, yet maintained solid form. Her eyes held depths that suggested direct neural integration with vast computational networks. Most unsettling of all, she seemed to radiate a subtle energy field that made the air around her shimmer slightly. "Admiral Chen," Ambassador Veltar said carefully, "we were not aware that human transportation technology had advanced to include matter transmission capabilities." "It hasn't," Admiral Chen replied with a smile that suggested she was enjoying the council's confusion. "I'm not actually here. This is a projection generated by our planetary network. The real me is currently helping to install a new atmospheric processor on Mars." The casual mention of terraforming Mars as if it were routine maintenance sent a wave of shocked silence through the chamber. Terraforming projects typically required centuries of careful planning and resource allocation. Humanity appeared to be treating them as weekend projects. "Admiral," Representative Mordak said slowly, "our monitoring indicates that your species has somehow managed to achieve energy production capabilities that should be theoretically impossible given your technological base just 1 year ago. How do you explain this advancement?" Admiral Chen's expression grew thoughtful, as if she were trying to find words that could bridge the gap between human experience and galactic understanding. "Representative, you're still thinking about this the wrong way. You're treating our advancement as if it were a linear progression from our previous technological level. But that's not what happened." The viewing screen shifted to display real-time images of the Sol system that defied comprehension. Earth appeared to be surrounded by vast construction projects that extended into space itself. Massive structures connected the planet to its moon, creating what appeared to be a single integrated system. Similar construction was visible around Mars, Venus, and even the gas giants of the outer system. "When Earth started trying to kill us," Admiral Chen continued, "we didn't just adapt to survive. We learned to think like Earth itself. We stopped seeing ourselves as separate from our environment and started seeing ourselves as part of a larger system that included our entire world." She gestured, and the display zoomed in to show details of the planetary modifications that left the council members speechless. Cities that seemed to grow directly from the Earth itself, their boundaries blurring the line between natural geological formation and artificial construction. Transportation networks that followed the planet's natural energy flows rather than fighting against them. Most remarkably, Human communities that seemed to exist in perfect harmony with geological processes that should have made civilization impossible. But then we realized something, Admiral Chen said, and her smile carried a note of anticipation that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. If we could learn to think like a planet, why stop there? Why not learn to think like a solar system? The implications of her words hit the council like a physical blow. They were not simply witnessing the survival of humanity. They were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a species that had achieved integration with natural forces on a scale that challenged the basic assumptions of galactic civilization. "Admiral," Chief Science Officer Kexvin said, her voice tight with barely controlled alarm, "are you suggesting that humanity has somehow achieved technological integration with stellar-scale natural processes?" "I'm not suggesting it," Admiral Chen replied. "I'm demonstrating it." The viewing screen exploded into activity as the display shifted to show the Sol system from a perspective that revealed the true scope of human achievement. What the Council had initially interpreted as separate terraforming projects were revealed to be components of a single, vast engineering system that encompassed the entire star system. Energy flowed between worlds through channels that seemed to follow the natural gravitational patterns of space itself. The sun itself appeared to be integrated into the network, its output carefully managed and directed to power projects that spanned billions of kilometers. "This is impossible," Representative Mordak whispered, his scales cycling through colors that indicated complete cognitive overwhelm among his species. "Impossible is just another word for something we haven't figured out yet," Admiral Chen said. "When Earth taught us to work with geological forces instead of against them, we learned principles that apply to much more than just planetary geology. Gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear fusion, quantum mechanics, they're all just different aspects of the same fundamental forces that shape reality." The display showed human settlements that existed not just on planetary surfaces, but in the void of space itself, following orbital patterns that seemed to dance with the gravitational music of the solar system. Massive installations that harvested energy directly from the solar wind. Most awe-inspiring of all, evidence that humanity had begun extending their influence beyond their own star system, reaching toward the nearest neighboring stars with projects that suggested they were treating interstellar space as simply another environment to understand and integrate with. "You expected our mourning to be silent," Admiral Chen continued, "because you thought of planetary death as an ending. But humanity doesn't see endings. We see transitions. We see opportunities. We see challenges that make us stronger when we overcome them." The council chamber had fallen completely silent. They were witnessing something that challenged not just their understanding of technology, but their understanding of what it meant to be an intelligent species in the universe. But perhaps most importantly, Admiral Chen concluded, we learned that the universe doesn't want us to be quiet. It wants us to be loud. It wants us to ask questions and find answers. It wants us to take the energy and matter it provides and shape them into something beautiful and complex and alive. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a note of invitation that was somehow more unsettling than any threat could have been. The galaxy is much larger than any one star system, and there are so many more challenges out there waiting for us to discover them. So many more impossibilities waiting for us to prove them wrong. Earth was just our practice run. Now we're ready to see what the universe really has to teach us." The projection of Admiral Chen faded, leaving the council in stunned silence as they contemplated the future of a galaxy that now contained a species that viewed impossibility as merely an invitation to get creative. In the distance, barely detectable by their instruments, the first human exploration vessels were already leaving the Sol system, carrying with them the loud, stubborn, gloriously impossible legacy of a world that had refused to die quietly, and a species that had learned to sing harmony with the universe itself. The age of silent mourning was over. The age of cosmic symphony had begun.